Welcome to the National Women's Fitness Academy podcast. We're here to talk about women's health, female hormones, body image, and all things health and fitness.
Hello girls, and welcome back to another episode of the Women's Fitness Academy's podcast. I'm your host, Siggy, one of the WFA's educators and a women's online coach, body image and fitness coach. Today I'm chatting with the lovely Tabby Knight, who's a 20-year-old female and is a IFBB bikini athlete and the owner of TK Performance. Now, Tabby's values are aligned to educate, inspire, and transform all of the women she works with, and showing them that it is possible. If she can do it, then they can do it too. And that's what we're all about with the Women's Fitness Academy, is empowering one another, showing what's possible. Because we all know that we suffer from limiting beliefs, or our ego will try and pull us down, but there's no better way of being inspired by other women to show us that we can do it. So Tabby, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
This is going to be an epic episode, especially for the younger generation. You know, in the past, I've spoken to many bodybuilders in their 30s and the 40s and late motherhood. And I think today's podcast is going to be a really cool one for the girls who are in their early 20s, late teens, who are wanting to start their health and fitness, or even wanting to pursue a little bit of their bodybuilding career. So let's start off with what made you start bodybuilding.
Yeah, so I have grown up in a very athletic based family, and I was a competitive gymnast. I competed internationally at national levels, and I started training for gymnastics when I was 3, literally.
Wow.
Yeah, so I remember going from years 7 to 10 in school. I was probably training upwards of 25 hours a week. I would miss school. I'd train prior, I'd train after school. And it ended up getting to a point where I was training so much, and that stage is really critical for obviously body development. We're going through a lot. And I ended up getting stress fractures in my feet, in my back. And it kind of got to a point where it was I'm not going to the Olympics. Is it worth continuing to endure these injuries? So the way I sort of went about obviously my rehab was getting into the gym and getting into strength training. And from going from training 25 hours a week to all of a sudden nothing when I stopped, it was well, I'm going through puberty. I'm gaining body fat anyway. I'm about to gain a whole lot more. And so I started training in the gym, and I sort of found some purpose there. My mum had done a bodybuilding show before, so I did have some kind of experience in regards to tracking, seeing what it was actually like for someone to go through it. And I remember being at her show and seeing people in bikinis, and I was I want to do that one day. So the transition for me from doing gymnastics into bodybuilding, it was never questionable. It was never oh, I don't know what to do now. I always knew what I wanted to do. It was more so the process of taking that next step, because I was 16 at the time, and I'm there's no way I can be a bodybuilder at 16 years old. This just isn't unheard of. And I did start then. I started with a personal trainer, and the first time I went to my personal trainer, I was 16. I said to him, yeah, I want to compete. And I remember he looked at me and he was are you sure? Do you know what this involves? And I was just so confident. I'm yeah, 100%. I want to step on stage in the next few months. And he was I don't think so. But I always knew it was what I wanted to do. Once I stopped gymnastics, I've always been that person that I'm very head focused. So once I've got one specific goal, nothing is going to change that until I do it. So gym was out of the question. Get myself in the actual gym with a PT and learn how to train, lift some weights, learn about nutrition. Obviously, I had some accountability at home and someone to help guide me in the initial kind of process. But yeah, it just all sort of stemmed from there.
I love how it stemmed from a really young age, especially because, certain bodybuilders do and don't come from a background of either gymnastics or sports, or having that really positive influence from their parents to compete, where sometimes we see the complete opposite. We see women wanting to go into bodybuilding because they hate their body. They're wanting to change it for the wrong reasons. And I can say that because I was one of them. I was always striving to be something more and better because I hated the relationship that I had with my body. So it's very inspiring to hear from like a really young age, you were wanting to compete because you had that fire and that strive in you to go on stage. And, you know, moving forward, you know, you're 20 now and you've done already, what was it, like 3 competitions?
Yeah, I've done 3.
Yeah. So how has that been so far with that, you know, you being on stage? Like, do you still have that fire? Is it something that you're still wanting to pursue for, you know, for a while?
If anything, it's only gotten stronger. So after the first 2 shows, I think I didn't anticipate how much different someone looks at a young age on stage next to girls that are a whole lot older than them. So the first time I obviously compete in the junior categories, but because I can maintain I can't maintain, but I can get into quite a lean and conditioned physique. So when I'm on stage, I can still I enter into like the open class categories. And I didn't realize how much difference like I would look compared to girls who are 10, 20 years older than me and their muscle maturity. So after those first 2 shows, I was like, oh my God, I have a lot of work to do. And to someone, they could look at this like, I'm never going to get there. It's not worth it. But I kind of looked at it as if I'm placing I won last year in my first show. And I placed as well in like top 3 in all my categories that I've ever entered. And I'm like, if I can place top 3 next to girls who literally are 10 years older than me, then imagine how I'll look in 10 years. And for me, that's always just what drives me to keep going, to keep turning up each day. And even I competed last weekend and I've got another show in 2 weeks, and it can be really hard for some people between shows. And I'm like, no, I'm ready to go again. I'm ready to continue turning up. Like, show day is one thing, but show day is not even like the big thing for me. It's not about getting on stage. I genuinely love prepping, and I love the fact that no one can take my physique away from me and how I look. Like, I'm in control of how I turn up each day. No, it's not determined by anyone else. So I think that sense of drive comes from like a control aspect, and the fact that no one can influence it, continues to motivate me to see where I can potentially go.
It's so interesting that you mentioned that usually the stage day is not like the highlight for you. Where majority of women, it is like, you know, comp day, it's like the bikinis, the makeup, it's the donuts, the rice cakes, like it's like the food. But for yourself, you just mentioned it's the actual process.
Yeah, like honestly, because I'm not like a very emotional person. Even after I competed last weekend, I got really overwhelmed. Like, I'm not the type to eat. Like, after the show, I didn't eat cookies. I didn't eat things like this, because I also find people that are in like devouring food straight after the competition, I'm like, you're in it for the wrong reasons. If you're looking forward to the post-show food so much, then you're not doing it right, because I'm prepping, I'm still eating like every day. I'm not, obviously we've got to get to a point where we're going to be quite hungry if you're wanting to get in condition, but if you're doing it just for that donut after you get off stage, I think like you've got to realign your goals. But for me, it's more so just like that experience. Like, I can go out for dinner with a friend after the show and that's fine, but the experience is everything. Like, seeing how your body can transform in 20 weeks if you actually show up each day, if you give it 100%, is amazing. I also find it pretty cool. Like, one day you can wake up extremely low on energy and it's like, how the hell did I just go do like all my cardio, all my training, and I've got no energy? Like, the power that your mind has over your body, if you can really like flip the switch, is insane. And that's what I love. Like, the actual day itself is extremely overwhelming, and I don't know, like the glitz and glamour, I love it, obviously. Like, don't get me wrong, it's amazing. I love those bikinis and seeing everyone is insane, but I'm definitely not doing it for that. If you were to take the stage, like, I've prepped before and not being able to compete, if you take the stage away from me, I would still be doing this anyway.
It's the long-term goal for you, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
Now that we're talking about like long-term goals, because we already mentioned that you've been well, you've competed against women who have been doing it like 10 years or more.
Mhm.
What's the long-term goal? Like, are we wanting to do it like, 10 years plus? Like, do you have this vision of you, becoming a pro eventually?
110%. I want to win my pro card as soon as I can. And if I could step on the Olympia stage one day, that would be that's the goal. So I would never put a time frame on it. There's nothing in my brain that says I don't want to be doing this when I'm 30. It's I want to be doing this until one, I will get a pro card first. And it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, because I do think I can do that. And then after that, it's getting to that Olympia stage, and I'll continue doing it until my body allows me to do it.
I really admire that, because too often, I'm sure you've seen this with other women, we set these goals and we put a time frame, and then when we don't reach that time frame, we lack that confidence, we put ourselves down, or we just lack the drive to pursue those goals. And I think it's very important to people, especially women, to understand that whatever we wish to strive for will eventually come to us, but we just don't know when. And this is really hard to comprehend, because as coaches or as women in fitness, we have goals, we want to set targets to reach. However, when you reach a certain target, you don't know exactly when that day is going to come. Like you said, you want to be doing your pro card as soon as possible, but like, is it going to be in 2 years time? Is it going to be in 10 years time? Like, we just don't know.
And you don't know who's going to turn up on that day either. You could think it's your time to win that pro card, and there's some girl you've never seen before who rocks up as well, and she's double the size of you, just as conditioned, and she gets it. So you've got to be in it for the long run. And as long as your body allows you to continue pushing, then I say go for it.
What do you tell your clients about that, in terms of like setting goals?
Yeah, so what the amount of clients I have come to me who want to achieve something in a realistic time frame, honestly, I say if you want to do a 12-week challenge, go sign up with someone who does 12-week challenges, because I don't do it. And what I usually suggest is write down like 3 realistic short-term goals you want to achieve, and write down 3 long-term goals you want to achieve. Short-term in the next, like from now into the next 3 months, and long-term within the next like 3-5 years. And I'll get them to send it to me. And from there, we keep it in like a PDF on like their Google sheet, and we can just like continue referring back to it every like couple of weeks. We bring it up, we mention them, and even just like setting non-negotiable, like daily non-negotiables for them to achieve their short-term and to long-term goal. You've sort of got to brainstorm. For me, it's more so a matter of, I like to work on a client's mindset before I actually work on their physique. Because whatever, like your brain is your driving force at the end of the day. Whatever if your brain determines something's hard, your body's going to follow. So you've got to sort of like teach your brain to train your body. And honestly, if we can engage like that mental aspect in a client, they'll be unstoppable. Most of the time, my clients will say to me after like a few months working together, they'll be like, I don't care how long this takes. Like, I actually am just enjoying the process, because it's got to become a lifestyle change, not just a 12-week challenge.
Yeah, I definitely admire that, because too often we see a lot of people who are getting into fitness for the wrong reasons, because they think, oh, once I do this challenge, it'll be like, cool, I achieve all my results and then go back to your old habits. But we know it doesn't work that way.
No, exactly. And I always say the slower you get your results, the more sustainable they are too. So if you're implementing small lifestyle changes, like even just going for a 30-minute walk each morning, it's like you can implement this into your daily life and you can sustain it. It's not hard to lose weight. Literally, like put yourself in a calorie deficit and smash yourself with cardio. But then you've got to question, is this sustainable? Are you going to experience dieting fatigue? Probably, yeah. So that's why it's also important to have a coach and someone there to hold you accountable and say, no, take a step back and let's do this a little bit slower. Trust the process. That way you can actually sustain the results. I've had clients leave me before, and then they've ended up coming back to me and being like, yeah, I actually gained the weight back, and I know I want to take the slow route now, and it's been fine.
And you know what? As we know, like the slow route always wins.
It does. And I can't lie. Would I love to wake up like in condition and double the size tomorrow? Of course I would.
Yeah, anyone would.
Anyone. But you've also got to be realistic too. And if you are an overachiever, and I I can say I'm a bit of an overachiever, and sometimes I want things a lot quicker, but you're going to set unrealistic standards for yourself and you're going to end up being disappointed too. So if you don't want that to happen, you'll burn out. Definitely. Yep.
And speaking of the journey as well, you mentioned about setting non-negotiables. Like right now as a competitor, like what are some of your non-negotiables during prep?
Some of my non-negotiables, okay, a big one is I read for 20 minutes every morning. I've never been like a big reader. And this is another aspect of like just mindset. If I'm here training, if I'm here feeding my body, then I need to be doing something that's healthy for my mind as well. And when you get deep into prep and you're on low carbs as well, your brain starts to get a little bit crazy. So keeping that little bit of focus and your mind stimulated helps. So I definitely read for 20 minutes every morning. Just going for a 30-minute walk each morning, making sure I have like 4 liters of water. These are my non-negotiables. Like they're not something extravagant. They're not something magical. These are things like a general person can do. Anyone can read for 20 minutes each morning. It'll be a game changer. I swear. That's like the one thing I tell all my clients to do. And yeah, it's just little things like going for a walk, drinking a certain amount of water, and my non-negotiables as well as like getting my cardio session in. I do cardio every day. So these are things that have to be done.
And the cardio right now is quite on the high end because we're about to compete again.
Yeah. It's not ideal, but wouldn't recommend it to a Gen Pop client ever. I just try to disassociate myself from it. I don't think like at the moment I've just actually backed off this week, but I was doing about an hour on the Stairmaster a day, plus around like 2 hours of walking. And I never looked at it as a number. I never looked at it like I've got an hour to do on the Stairmaster. You've got to disassociate yourself from numbers because I find that's when we can get like a bit too obsessive. What I would do is I'd be like, okay, now's my time to listen to like the new updated podcast while I'm on the Stairmaster. So every time I'd get on the stairs, I'd either watch like a new episode of like a TV show. I'd have like a specific TV show I only watch on the stairs that I'm not allowed to watch when I get home. So it's like, this isn't the time to go to my cardio. It's the time to now watch a new episode or listen to a new podcast. So you've got to kind of just change the way you view things.
I love that because it's like bundling your task for the day, but also adding some pleasure into it too.
Yeah, because I'm like, I want to know what's happening in the show next.
Yeah, I love that. And you know what? Like I do that with my morning walk, not so much like watch Netflix because you'll probably end up like something, but listening to a podcast that you're actually interested in doing, which gives you that stimulus of going, cool, I'm listening to something that I really enjoy and I'm getting my walk in for the day.
Oh, 100%. And even just like grabbing like a long black coffee or something prior to your walk and putting like an experience around it, it goes a long way, and not looking at it as like, I have to go do steps. Think of it like, no, this is what I just do each morning. I get my coffee, I listen to a podcast, and the steps just come with it.
And I think that's a really important point that you made out here, because we don't have to do anything. We get to do these things. And I think like, again, going back to changing that mindset around training or around whatever cardio you have to do, it's just like you're making that decision every day to go ahead and do that.
Oh, the amount of people that have actually said to me, oh my God, aren't you in prep? Like most people that are in prep are so tired and complaining. I have never once in my life ever complained about being tired, complained about being hungry. Am I those things? Oh yeah, I am. Definitely. But one, I find if you speak about it, it's going to make it worse. Two, I'm choosing to do this. I put myself through this situation. So I'm not going to put the burden on anyone else, and I'm not going to complain to anyone else, because I can prevent myself from being hungry. I could just eat something and not prep. I can prevent myself from not being fatigued. I can stop doing the cardio, but I choose to do it. So it's up to me.
I'm so glad we've opened this conversation, because too often, and I'm sure you've seen this as well, that many competitors do complain about the hunger, about the cardio, about the draining, about the energy. And you know what, like, yes, that is the reality of the sport. However, in my opinion, and you know, from my experience and what I see, it puts a really bad repertoire on bodybuilding.
Oh my God, it does. No, it does extremely. And I actually think that some people like kind of like exacerbate it and make it worse, and like exaggerate on their Instagram about their fatigue and about their tiredness to almost like try and motivate people. Like, I'm so tired, but I'm still doing this. It's like, well, let your results do the talking. Okay. And I'm just a big believer in that. So yeah, I think don't speak it into existence. Yes, you're going to be tired. You're going to be hungry. Be proactive and think of ways around it.
Yeah, definitely. So let's talk about things to be proactive around it, because I'm already getting a really good sense that you enjoy what you're doing. But yes, we have those difficult moments when you do have those, I'm going to say in quotations, like bad days. Like what helps you to be proactive about it to change that mindset?
Honestly, it's going to sound really basic, but keeping busy. And I know everyone says it, but like I work from home, I work on my laptop. So it's like I'm sitting next to my kitchen. It can be difficult. So what I do is I literally I use Calendly, like Google Calendar, and there's a whole lot of routine there. And I just add something in for every single day that I can look forward to, even if it's working. I usually go and work at the state library, or I go work at a cafe, bring my meal and have like a long black coffee. And I take the experience somewhere else. Even if I'm just like, want to read my book later in the day, I go up to like Federation Square. I go into a park and read instead of just like reading on my couch at home. It's basic things like keeping busy and going and doing things like for your recovery. Like I do a lot of ice baths, I do massage, I catch up with friends as well. Like these things can honestly go a long way. And I think if you are not preoccupied, then it's going to be hard.
Especially during prep.
Yeah, especially, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, especially during prep. And especially like you mentioned, you sit next to your kitchen, like that is tempting.
Yeah, yeah. The good thing with me is I do live alone. So whatever, like, even if I was hungry right now, there's actually nothing I can go and eat. Like, in all honesty, if I want to cook, like eat something right now, I actually have to cook it and prepare it. So and yeah, I don't have any snacks. There's no way I'm going to grab some popcorn. It's definitely easier in that regard that I don't live with someone and I live alone. So whatever's in my pantry is in my control.
I love that. And you know what? That comes down to that strong mindset around being a competitor.
Yeah. No, it does. And because my first prep, I lived at home. But for me, it's never actually been an issue because I know what I have to eat. And that's the thing. Like if you want to overeat in prep, I mean, go for it. You can, but it's only going to affect like your results at the end of the day.
I love that. Speaking of results, what changes have you noticed from your first competition to the one you've just had?
Yeah. Okay. So I was talking, in my first competition, I was very small. I did not have a lot of muscle, but I mean, I prepped when I was 18 and I got on stage when I was 19. So I just don't have the muscle maturity. And even now, I competed last weekend and my goal is always just to do really well in juniors because juniors is up to like 24. So last year I was the youngest person on stage. This year I was the youngest person on stage. I did end up winning last week, but it was like I was still a lot smaller than all the other girls, especially in the open categories, because if I'm topping it up in juniors, it's like, well, now I've got to take it next level. If I want to get a pro card, it's not about beating the juniors. It's about beating those open girls. And yeah, the biggest thing from my last competition was I had to take 14 months off and I gained I'm pretty sure I ended up gaining, it was like 19.8 kilos. Like it was borderline the 20 mark and it's almost stressful, but I knew that I trusted my body. I knew that I knew how to diet. I was the only one who was in control of losing that weight to prep again. But also because I am quite tall, and what a lot of girls don't realize is you need body fat on you if you want to grow muscle. And the most amount of gains like I made and the biggest difference I saw in my body composition was when I was at the highest level of body fat. And that was when I was training my best. I was the strongest in the gym. I was hitting PRs and mentally I had so much mental clarity. I was in a really good headspace and I've never been like overweight in that sense. I held my body fat quite well and I still ate pretty clean in my off season. And to someone, it's like, but you gained 20 kilos. But that was also from my comp prep weight. And I needed to do that in order to step, well, obviously onto the IFBB stage and look like I deserve to be there as well.
I love that we've spoken about weight gain as well, because like you said, like you almost gained 20 kilos.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It can be really scary for some people. My body, I've seen myself at 70 kilos. I've also seen myself at 50 kilos in the span of 6 months. And I've never worried about this. Again, if you are only liking your physique when you're extremely lean, then I don't think this sport is for you either. You've actually got to appreciate the journey and appreciate your body. And it's actually kind of cool, like how our body can change so much if you actually put trust into it and you trust yourself. I know that I know how to diet. I know that I've got the discipline to do it. And I know that I've got the willpower, and I know that no one's going to affect it. I'm in control of how I look. So when I was peak off season, I was like, yeah, but I know I'm going to get lean. And I had no worries in the world. I was confident in what I was wearing, and you just got to rock it at the end of the day. No one like judges you. And I think that's something so many people don't realize when they're getting into the industry. When you're at the gym, literally no one cares. No one cares about like your body shape, like about your size, but we're our own worst like critic at the end of the day too. So it's just like embracing the process, embracing your body's changes, and just going with the flow. Know that you're in control. If you want to change, you can.
It's so important because especially for younger girls, you know, your generation as well, when they're looking up to women who, I don't know, have been in the industry for like 10, 15 years, and they're doing the old comparisons, just like, well, I want to be her, but I'm over here. And again, that can be quite disheartening because you're wanting the results now, but like you said, it's not about the end goal, it's about the whole journey itself.
It's so about the journey. I look at girls on the Olympia stage right now, and I want to look like that. 100% I do. But I'm also realistic. Those girls are literally 30. I've got 10 years, and I'm like, I'm going to be fine. As long as I continue to turn up each day, give it 100%, train every day and eat accordingly and eat as if I'm already a pro, then I'll get there.
I love that. How did that transition go for you from gaining the weight during that process?
So as in from like ending my first prep.
Yeah.
Yes, it was a 14-month period. When I first came out of my prep, I was quite obsessive when it came to like tracking my nutrition, and I initially struggled to go out for meals and not know what was in food. And this is another thing. It's like it did take me a few weeks, and it was about being uncomfortable again. And for me, it wasn't in a sense of being uncomfortable with my physique. It was like being uncomfortable in regards to not tracking. I think it's actually a really important skill to be able to eat intuitively, and not a lot of girls know how to do it. And coming out of a comp prep, it is extremely hard when you've been so fixated on numbers. So I obviously gradually gained weight over the course of like 14-month period. And I remember looking back when I was at my heaviest, and I'm like, yes, I've gained all this weight, but I actually have gained a lot of muscle as well. So, I mean, if you gain 20 kilos, like you're bound to put on some muscle tissue. So, so and I knew that like during that 14 months, I can honestly admit, I never once missed a training session. I never once like didn't hit my step count. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing if someone does. It's definitely not. It's just training is a big aspect of my life. So I knew if I was following my program, if I was checking with my coach on like a daily to weekly basis, then everything was controlled.
It's so true, but we also need to make our listeners understand that you're a competitor, and it's completely different to your everyday client because you have that end goal of reaching, the stage again where our everyday client is going to be completely different to that goal.
Yeah, like I have to be on both ends of the spectrum. I have to get to a certain body fat in my off season, and I have to get real conditioned and lean when I'm close to comp. So I do see my body at total ends of the spectrum every single year, and to me that's extremely fascinating and I love it. But I would never recommend that to a gen pop client, and they don't have to ever think about even gaining that much weight if they want to. Like if you want to change your physique, you can do that. Like you don't have to see a number on the scales. A lot of my clients, I don't even have weigh themselves because you don't need to. It's about aesthetics at the end. Like it's honestly about aesthetics. It's about how you feel. There's so many other variables we can look at that isn't a number on the scales. It's like the scales represents your relationship with gravity at that point in time. It doesn't know, for example, if you're on your period, if you had a meal late, if you didn't go to the toilet. It doesn't know if you're stressed, do you have inflammation. So the number is irrelevant. Look at like your mental clarity. Are you training better? Are you lifting more? Is your sleep quality improved? How's your mental health? How are things fitting? And it's like, look at all these factors. And these are actually all factors that I get my clients to tell me about in their check-ins instead of their number.
Yeah, it's so true because like you mentioned, like weight is just one attribute of all of the progress that they're making.
Yeah, no, it is.
I love that. So true. Speaking of, like, I know we've been talking about your weight class and gaining the weight, but like, what are some of the lessons that you've learned yourself during this process from being, in your late teens to now being 20 as a competitor?
The biggest lesson is literally that I'm in control of everything. No one can take it away from me. No one can affect my physique, and that's actually the biggest lesson I've learned. It's, you can make all the excuses in the world, but it comes down to you.
When did you come to that realization?
Oh, that's, you know what, that's tough because like I grew up in a quite a chaotic like home environment, and I didn't have a sense of control at home. And
Mm.
that's why when I decided to like move out, and when I came like, I think my realization was once I actually moved out, and I thought, in not even just regards to my physique, but in regards to like my business, what I do on a day-to-day basis, no one's influencing that besides me. So I guess then
I love that. And it's so, and when did you move out?
I moved out when I was 18. Yeah. So yeah.
So even like from a young age, you had that realization that literally no one has control over you but yourself, and you're taking responsibility for it as well.
Yeah. And like you can either play victim and have the poor me attitude, but it's not going to get you anywhere. And I get that it can be hard, and it can be quite, yeah, it can be quite challenging for individuals who don't have that mindset. But if you like, once you take ownership and you take responsibility, your life will change. If you can just admit to sometimes being in the wrong, to making mistakes, and realizing that, but you can change it. If you've made a mistake, that's okay. Like, acknowledge it, move on from it. The first like way to improve is to be aware and to acknowledge that you've made mistakes and how to improve on it, and you're in control of that.
And speaking of control, like, as you mentioned, it's not as if you've always had this awareness. You may have gone through your own personal challenges around this. Can you recall of a time where, you may have fallen into being a victim and you're like, well, this is shit. I don't want to do this.
um to be honest, not really. I like, when I was at home, I didn't have any like control, to be honest, about what I was doing. And I remember I was in probably year 11 or 12, and I felt a lot of pressure that I had to do really well at school. I had to go get a bachelor's degree. I had to go to uni, and that wasn't what I wanted to do at all. But even then, I never had a poor me attitude and thought, I don't want to study, so I'm not going to. I thought, no, I'm gonna be smart. I'm gonna put my head down. I'm gonna focus. And I did go to uni. Like, I got into the course that I wanted to do because I've never had a victim mindset. I just haven't. I won't allow that to bring me down because I've always wanted more from myself.
That's so powerful. And I'm sure with that mindset, you're also encouraging your clients to look at a different view as well.
100%. And that's what I was talking about before. Your brain is your driving force, and we've got to level up the client's brain mentally before we actually transform their physique. But you'll find the body follows once we actually acknowledge what their why is, what their purpose is, and why they want to train. The first thing I ask a client is, why have you come to me? I
Mm.
want to know. The different answers you get is amazing. And that's why I love my job. I love knowing why a client wants to transform, and how I can, like, as a coach, you was the biggest influence on that person's life. And when you actually take a step back and seeing how much like I've made some people transform, it's admirable, and it motivates me even more. But yeah, it's all got to do with the mental aspect first.
It's so true. And, as you mentioned earlier in today's podcast, that you do take the time for yourself every morning to read a book, or whether it's like listen to a podcast, which, we're huge at advocating this to our clients, but we also need to practice this ourselves to lead by example.
Yeah, one thing I always struggled with was actually taking time for myself and acknowledging how far I've come even. But it was almost like a small implementation that I do that I recommend to my clients and even like people listening is when I go and train, I put my phone on do not disturb. This is my me time. I end up coming out of that session with so much more mental clarity. I'm not picking up my phone or replying to messages. And it's like, you've got your 1 hour a day where it's just you in your head, listening to your music, doing what you want to do. And that's another time of my day where it's like, it's just me. No one's here around me. I'm doing this because I want to. And I've never been someone, I've not been able to meditate. Honestly, I can't do it. So for me, training is almost like a form of meditation for me. Meditation doesn't need to be sitting there quiet and thinking. It's more so just getting in tune with your mind, and even just like mind to muscle connection. That is meditation. And that's why that's like a really small tip I find helps with a lot of clients. Like, put your phone on do not disturb, or honestly, if you know your program or whatever, like print your program out, or even put your phone in the bathroom.
It's so true. And I love that you mentioned that you put it on do not disturb, because when I first started doing that, it was just so therapeutic knowing that no one's going to interrupt you during that time.
Right. And it's like, I don't have to worry about someone calling me either, because you don't know until that session's over.
I know. And this is something that I'm sure, a lot of coaches struggle with, because, as coaches or as leaders, we're always needing to be on for everyone else. But it's just like, no, like you have this 1 hour for yourself, why not dedicate it to you only?
Yeah. Because I would struggle as well with, because I run my own business. I'm like, but how many hours should I work? Do I work Sundays? I don't know. And I've never actually put a time frame on it. And I've never been like, okay, I'm taking Sundays off. If I feel like working on a Sunday, I will work on a Sunday. If I don't feel like working on a Sunday, I won't. My clients will always get replied to within 24 hours. But the thing is, I'm on my phone. Like, I reply to them. And sometimes I found it hard because I'd be like, it's 9 p.m. at night and I'm getting messages. And I was like, I can't switch off. And I'd be replying and I'd be working, and it's 10 and then it's 11. And I'm like, this is getting too much. So one thing that helped with me was like, okay, well, get a work phone. So now I've got 2 separate phones. On my personal phone, I don't even have like WhatsApp downloaded. I don't have like Instagram, nothing. And the only contacts I have on that phone is like my friends and my family. And then the other phone, I've got it on when like during work hours, and it's important to actually switch that off and know when to switch off. If I want to work outside of those hours, fine, but that's on me.
And that's taking responsibility for your own actions as well. And I love that you mentioned that you have 2 separate phones. Obviously, not everyone can do that, but a really good way of looking at it is turning all your notifications off and setting certain times of the day to actually check your messages, which has been so helpful for my business and a lot of the coaches that I coach as well.
I can imagine, because even you would have messages coming through all day. So it's like, when are you actually switching off? Because even though you're getting a message through like Instagram DM about like an inquiry or something, well, that's still working. Your brain's not relaxing if you're doing that.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, again, like, as coaches, we just need to be a little bit more mindful of our own time and energy as well as our businesses.
Yeah, we do, because like from a client perspective, I let my clients message me whenever. If a client is having an issue at 12 a.m. at night, I'm most likely asleep and I'm not going to reply. But the fact that they know that they can actually message me whenever, I think is very important. I'm going to see that first thing in the morning and I'm going to respond to them. So if they think, like, if I told my clients I only work 9 to 5, they're going to think, oh, but I've had an issue at 6 p.m. What do I do? Like, I'm not allowed to contact her, and they're going to get stressed. So I think that allowing them to have that freedom to actually message me whenever, and if I happen to be on my phone, they're going to get a response.
Yeah, I love that. It's just setting those boundaries, not only for our clients, but for ourselves as well. So that we're not constantly available, because it can be quite tiring.
Yeah, it can. You can get burnt out from working so much. Yeah, you can.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what, especially as, competing as well, like competing is just another aspect of your life too. So you're needing to taking care of that as well as taking care of everyone else.
Well, yeah, like working is fatiguing, obviously. And when I was actually initially quite worried going into my comp prep, I'm like, how am I going to deal with having so many clients and being so fatigued? But I actually found it worked out really well because I'm dealing with clients all day. I'm not even thinking about food. I'm not thinking about my fatigue because the work's got to get done. And I think that this is like one of my non-negotiables. All my clients' replies must be done. Their programs must be updated. So to me, it's not a matter of when are their program, like if their program's going to get updated, it's when I'm doing it. And it's got to get done no matter what. And it's helped me with fatigue. And actually, honestly, it's gotten me through this prep.
I love that. That's so good.
Yeah.
It's super inspiring to hear from, I'm going to say younger generation because I'm quite older, but it's inspiring for, the girls who are in their late teens and early 20s who are aspiring to whether be coaches or, enter the bodybuilding industry to make them realize that, hey, like you have full control of this. It just depends on how you're going to take it.
That is my biggest lesson to literally like even everyone listening now is it doesn't matter how old you are, just remember that like you're in control. No one can take it away from you. You control what goes in your mouth every single day. You control if you go to the gym, how you turn up. If you're low on energy, if you don't, like, you're the only one who controls that, how you turn up and your mindset. So I think that's just once you can realize that, your body will change.
Yeah. Not only your body, your mind, your life.
Your life will change. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. So, so true. Tabby, thank you so much for joining me today. I know a lot of the girls are going to be getting a lot of value from what we've been talking about.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, I can't wait. Thank you so much for having me as well.
It's been awesome. And we know your next comp is coming up in a couple of weeks. How are we feeling about it?
Yeah, I've got nationals, which is in 2 weeks, and then I've got the amateur Olympia, which is in Japan in 5 weeks. So I'm honestly, I'm so excited. But like I was saying before, I'm not even excited for the show day. I just love the prep. So
Prep. And when is the competition in Japan?
so I leave on the 8th, but the actual competition itself is on the 13th.
I love that. 13th of November.
November. Yeah.
Yes, love that. Not long to go.
I know. And then I can eat some sushi.
Yeah. All the sushi. Oh my God. That is like one of the places that I want to go and dine and eat sushi because I've heard wonderful things about it.
Well, that's what I was saying. Yeah, when I was saying before, it's like for me, it's not really about the post-show food, but I'm so excited to go for like the Japanese culture because I love that type of stuff. And I'm going with my sister as well. So having the experience with her, I actually can't wait to have a bit of normality.
I love that. I love that. Before we head off, where can our followers find you?
Yeah, so my Instagram is just at Tabby Knight, and then the Knight has 2 T's.
2 T's, girls. Don't forget.
Don't forget the 2 T's.
Don't forget the 2 T's.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, girls, if you enjoyed today's podcast, please make sure that you screenshot it, tag us at the Women's Fitness Academy, tag Tabby, tag myself. And then till next time, remember, you're in control of literally everything, all of you.
Yes.